My girlfriend told me. She's my everything. You're just my boyfriend. Then sided with her toxic friend. So I packed her bags, kicked her out, and watched her come crawling back in regret. I'm 28, and for a long time, I thought I was in a stable and healthy relationship with my girlfriend, who's 26. We had been together for almost 3 years, and in many ways, I really did believe she was my person. Things felt easy in the beginning. Late-night drives, hours of conversation, planning trips, and talking about what our future could look like. But over time, something began to shift. It wasn't because of arguments between us, at least not at first. It was because of her friends, specifically one best friend who seemed to become more and more central to her world. At the start, I didn't think much of it. Everyone needs their own circle, and I respected that. I've never been the type to demand my partner cut people out of their lives. I believed in giving her space, letting her have her own identity, her own moments, her own friendships. But slowly, it became less about her having a social life and more about me being sidelined. The first signs were small. If we had a dinner planned, I'd suddenly get a text from her saying, "Hey, my friend called. She really needs me tonight." Rain check. It wasn't just once. It happened enough times that I started to feel like our plans were always second place. I would have understood if it was a real emergency, but most of the time, it was just her friend wanting to hang out. When I finally asked her about it, she brushed me off. She laughed a little and said, "You're my boyfriend, but she's my everything. Don't compare the two." That one line cut deeper than I expected. She's my everything. I sat there wondering how I was supposed to respond to that. What does that make me then? Where does that put me in her life? I could accept her having a best friend, but when your girlfriend tells you outright that her loyalty belongs more to someone else, it leaves a bruise that's hard to ignore. But it didn't stop there. Her best friend started to get bold, making comments directly to me. At first, they were disguised as jokes. Things like, "Oh, you're lucky she's even dating you." Asterisk, I'd force a laugh and move on. But over time, those jokes turned into statements. "She deserves better than you. I don't know what she sees in you." And the worst part? My girlfriend never said a word in my defense. Not once. She'd sit there in silence, or sometimes even chuckle, like it was all just harmless fun. I can handle teasing, but this wasn't teasing, it was disrespect. And when the person you love doesn't step in to protect you, it starts to eat at your self-worth. I tried to hold it in, tried to convince myself not to overreact. I told myself, she's known her friend longer than she's known me. Maybe she just doesn't want conflict. But after hearing the same degrading remarks over and over, I couldn't stay quiet forever. One night, we were all hanging out, and her friend once again said, "You're not good enough for her." Something in me snapped. I looked straight at her and said calmly, "If you can't respect me, don't expect me to respect you." I didn't yell. I didn't curse. I just put my boundary down. But the second those words left my mouth, I knew it was going to blow up. I could see it on my girlfriend's face: anger, disbelief, maybe even embarrassment. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't just up against her friend anymore. I was about to find out where her loyalty truly stood. The second I said, "If you can't respect me, don't expect me to respect you," the room went dead quiet. Her friend raised her eyebrows, smirking like she'd just won some kind of battle. But it was my girlfriend's reaction that floored me. Instead of standing up for me, her partner, she turned on me. She shot up from the couch and shouted, "You can't talk to my friend like that." Her voice was sharp, angrier than I'd ever heard it. Then she said the words that still stick in my head. "She's right. I probably do deserve better than you." That hit me like a punch in the chest. Not because her friend had said it before, I'd gotten used to those digs, but because she repeated it, out loud, in front of me, agreeing with it. It's one thing for outsiders to throw stones at your relationship. It's another when the person you're with decides to help them aim. I stared at her, waiting for some sign that maybe she was just lashing out. Maybe she didn't mean it. But she didn't take it back. She doubled down. After a tense pause, she demanded, "Go say sorry to her and finish this issue right now." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Apologize? To someone who had openly disrespected me for months? To someone who looked at me like I was an obstacle instead of her best friend's boyfriend? I felt my chest tighten, but not out of sadness, out of disbelief. "You want me to apologize for defending myself?" I asked, my voice calm but firm. "If you expect me to sacrifice my self-respect just to keep your friend happy, then this relationship is already over." She blinked, almost like she thought I was bluffing. Then she laughed. Actually laughed. A short, disbelieving laugh, as if I'd said something absurd. "You're not serious," she said, shaking her head. "Stop being dramatic." But I was serious. Dead serious. I told her to pack up everything I had ever bought for her, gifts, clothes, whatever she had at my place. She stared at me like I'd lost my mind, but when she realized I wasn't budging, her tone shifted. Now she was pleading. Don't do this. Don't throw everything away because of one argument. I wanted to believe her, wanted to think this was just one of those ugly moments couples sometimes go through. But deep down, I knew better. This wasn't just an argument. This was months of being undermined, dismissed, and disrespected boiling over. At 9 p.m. that night, I helped her gather her things. It was surreal, packing up pieces of a relationship that had once felt so solid. I didn't scream, didn't insult her, didn't make a scene. I just handed her the bags and told her, I can't do this anymore. That's when the tears started. She begged me not to go through with it. She promised she'd talk to her friend, promised things would change. But the damage was done. She had shown me exactly where I stood in her life, and it wasn't where a partner should stand. As she cried in my living room, I felt this strange mix of sadness and clarity. Sadness because I was watching someone I once thought I'd marry walk out the door. Clarity because, for the first time in months, I realized I didn't deserve to feel like a second-class option. When she finally stepped outside with her bags, I closed the door behind her and leaned against it for a moment. The silence in the apartment was heavy, but it also felt like relief. I thought that was the end of it, but I was wrong. Things were about to get much uglier. When I finally closed the door, I thought that was it. I thought she'd leave quietly, maybe cry to her friends, maybe even take some time to think. But just as she was stepping off my porch, she turned back. Her face was red from crying, but her tone was cold when she said, You'll regret this. I'll file a complaint against you. I'll tell people you mistreated me and misbehaved with me. I just stood there, looking at her. For a moment, I almost laughed at the absurdity of it, not because it was funny, but because it was so extreme. Minutes earlier, she was begging me not to end things, and now she was threatening to ruin me. I opened the door wider, met her eyes, and said, Do what you want. I know the truth. I don't care anymore. Just don't come back. She stared at me for a few seconds, probably expecting me to back down, to panic, to beg her not to follow through. But I didn't. I wasn't bluffing. Finally, she let out a frustrated yell, stomped toward her car, and slammed the door so hard the sound echoed down the street. The engine roared, and within seconds, she was gone. The silence afterward was deafening. I went back inside, sat down on the couch, and tried to process what had just happened. Hours earlier, I thought I was in a relationship that could be fixed. Now I was sitting in an empty apartment, staring at the reality that it was over. But strangely, I didn't feel broken. I didn't feel like my world had collapsed. What I felt most was relief. Heavy, tired relief. I kept replaying the moment in my head, the way she looked me in the eye and sided with her friend, the way she demanded I apologize for standing up for myself. That was when the truth hit me. This wasn't about one fight. This wasn't about me snapping at her friend. This was about months, maybe years, of her putting me second and expecting me to stay quiet about it. The tears she cried in my living room weren't about losing me. They were about losing control. Because the moment I refused to bend to her demands, I wasn't useful to her anymore. And then there were the threats. The way she tried to scare me on her way out. That told me everything I needed to know about where her mind was. She wasn't thinking about us. She wasn't thinking about what we'd shared. She was already thinking about how to win, how to punish me for not bowing down. I knew it wasn't going to stop there. If she was willing to threaten me, she was willing to try something. Maybe not legally, but socially. She had a circle of friends who already thought I wasn't good enough for her. It wouldn't be hard for her to spin a story and make me the villain. But in that moment, I didn't care. I was done. I poured myself a glass of water, sat by the window, and just let the quiet wash over me. The apartment felt bigger, emptier, but also cleaner somehow. Like all the noise and chaos had walked out with her. By midnight, I knew I'd made the right decision. No matter what came next, the gossip, the lies, the fallout, I had finally drawn a line. And I wasn't going to cross back over it. She was gone. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe. But the next morning, my phone started buzzing nonstop. And that's when I realized the storm had only just begun. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Missed calls, texts, notifications from social media. It was chaos before I'd even had a chance to make coffee. At first, I thought maybe she was trying to reach me directly, but then I realized most of the messages weren't from her. They were from mutual friends. The first one I opened read, Dude, what's going on? She's saying you were controlling and toxic. Did you really kick her out in the middle of the night? There it was. She was spinning the story. By noon, the version of events she was telling people had nothing to do with what actually happened. According to her, I was possessive, insecure, always picking fights with her friends, and finally snapped and threw her out, like she was worthless. She painted herself as the victim, crying and helpless, and me as the guy who couldn't handle her independence. I won't lie, I felt angry. Furious, even. It's one thing to break up. It's another to twist the truth to save face. But here's the part that surprised me. People didn't buy it. At least, not everyone. A few of her close friends rallied behind her immediately, parroting her words like a chorus. But the people who actually knew us as a couple, they weren't convinced. Several messaged me privately, saying things like, "Honestly, man, I've seen the way her friend talks to you. It's messed up." Or, "She's always been more loyal to her friend group than to you." None of this adds up. One person even told me, "She's embarrassed. Her card got declined the other day, and she's been freaking out about money. That's probably why she panicked when you stood your ground. She's not used to not getting her way." That clicked. It explained why she suddenly flipped from crying in my living room to threatening me at the door. It wasn't about love or heartbreak. It was about control and comfort. She wasn't just losing me. She was losing the lifestyle she had grown comfortable with. And now, instead of reflecting on what went wrong, she was out there trying to rewrite the story so she could play the hero, or at least the victim. I didn't respond publicly. I didn't post some dramatic defense of myself online. I knew that would only fuel the drama and give her more ammunition. Instead, I stayed quiet, let the dust settle, and trusted that people would see through it. And slowly, they did. The texts from mutual friends shifted from, "Is this true?" to, "Yeah, we're not buying it." More and more people admitted they'd noticed the imbalance in our relationship long before the breakup. Some even said they'd wondered why I'd put up with it for so long. That gave me a strange sense of validation. Not joy, because there's nothing joyful about watching someone you love try to ruin your reputation, but relief. Relief that the truth had a way of surfacing on its own. Still, it hurt to see how far she was willing to go. It hurt to realize that someone I once thought would be my future had no problem dragging my name through the mud the moment things didn't go her way. By the end of that week, the story she was trying to spread had lost most of its traction. People were moving on, talking about other things. But for me, the damage was already done. I couldn't unhear the words she'd thrown at me. I couldn't unsee the way she'd chosen her friend's approval over mine. And I couldn't ignore the fact that when the relationship ended, her first instinct wasn't to reflect or heal, it was to destroy. And deep down, I knew this wasn't the last I'd hear from her. About a week after the breakup, the noise around her gossip started dying down. Fewer people were messaging me about it, and I thought maybe, just maybe, I could finally move on in peace. But I should have known better. Late one evening, around 10 p.m., my phone lit up with a call from an unknown number. I almost ignored it, but something made me pick up. And sure enough, it was her. Her voice was soft, almost shaky. "Hey, can we talk?" I didn't say anything at first. Part of me wanted to hang up immediately. Another part wanted to hear what excuse she'd come up with this time. She continued, "I know I said some things I didn't mean. I was upset. I was scared. But I don't want to lose you. Can we just meet and talk this through?" For a moment, I just sat there, staring at the floor. This was the same person who told me I wasn't good enough. The same person who sided with her friend over me. The same person who threatened to ruin me. And now she wanted to talk? I told her calmly, "There's nothing left to talk about. You made your choice." She immediately started crying. "No, you don't understand. I didn't mean what I said. I was under pressure, everyone was in my ear, and that was the excuse. That she was under pressure. As if siding against me and belittling me was something she had no control over. I cut her off. If you were really on my side, you wouldn't need anyone else in your ear. That's the difference between love and convenience." She went quiet. I thought that would be the end of it. But then she said something that surprised me. "I know I messed up, but I can fix this. I told my friend I don't want her in the middle of us anymore. I told her to back off. I'll prove to you that I can make this right." For a split second, I felt something in my chest, like the tiniest flicker of doubt. Was she really cutting ties with her friend? Was this her version of taking accountability? But then I remembered the threats, the lies she spread, the way she laughed in my face when I said I was done. And the flicker died instantly. I told her, "It's too late. You don't get to tear me down, try to destroy me, and then come back when it doesn't work out. That's not how this works." She started pleading harder. "Please, don't say that. I can't lose you. You're the best thing that's ever happened to me. I'll change. I'll do whatever you want." The desperation in her voice was almost unrecognizable. But instead of feeling sympathy, I felt clarity. Where was this energy when her friend was tearing me apart? Where was this loyalty when I needed her to stand up for me? Now, when her narrative was collapsing, when people weren't buying her story, when her pride had taken a hit, that's when she decided I was worth fighting for. It wasn't love. It was damage control. I told her one final time, "I don't want to hear from you again. Don't call. Don't show up. Just move on." And I hung up. I thought that would be the end of it. But I underestimated how far regret can push someone. Because a few days later, she didn't just call. She showed up at my door. And this time, she wasn't alone. It was a Saturday afternoon when the knock came. I wasn't expecting anyone, so when I opened the door, my heart sank a little. There she was, standing on my porch with red eyes, holding a small bag like she had already planned to stay. But what really caught me off guard, she wasn't alone. One of her closest friends, the same one who'd always disrespected me, was standing right behind her. I let out a bitter laugh. You've got to be kidding me. She jumped in quickly. Wait, don't get mad. She just came to support me. I wanted to talk to you face to face. I leaned against the doorframe, shaking my head. You bring the person who called me worthless and told you that you deserve better? That's how you thought this conversation should go. Her friend didn't flinch. She stepped forward with crossed arms and said, "We're here because she deserves closure. You owe her that much." Something inside me snapped. Closure? I shot back. Closure doesn't come with threats, lies, and dragging my name through the dirt. And I don't owe either of you a damn thing. My ex started crying again, louder this time. Please, just let me explain. I didn't mean any of it. I was scared. I didn't know what to do. But the words meant nothing now. They were just noise. I'd heard them all before. Rehearsed apologies that only showed up when her comfort was at risk. I told her flat out, no. You don't get to walk back into my life after all of this. You sided with your friend, you laughed at me, you threatened me, and then you lied about me. That's not fear. That's betrayal. Her friend jumped in again, this time with anger. You're just being stubborn. She's trying to fix things, and you're too proud to give her a chance. Don't you care about her at all? That was the last straw. I looked at both of them and said, no, I don't care anymore. Not about her. Not about this circus you two have been running. I cared when it mattered, and she made her choice. Now, I care about one thing, my peace. And you're standing in the way of it. The words seemed to hang in the air. For the first time, my ex didn't argue back. She just stared at me, tears streaming down her face, realizing that no amount of pleading or pressure was going to change my mind. Her friend muttered something under her breath, grabbed her arm, and pulled her back a step. But my ex resisted, shaking her head. No, I can't just leave like this. Please, just tell me you don't hate me. That question hit harder than I expected. Hate? No, I didn't hate her. If anything, I pitied her. Because I knew that deep down, all of this chaos wasn't making her happy either. I sighed, looked her in the eye, and said, I don't hate you, but I don't trust you, and I don't want you in my life. That's the truth. She broke down completely then, sobbing into her hands while her friend awkwardly tried to comfort her. It was a scene I'll never forget, her crumbling on my doorstep while the very friend she had chosen over me stood uselessly by her side. After a few more seconds, I stepped back, closed the door, and locked it. I leaned against it, listening as their voices faded and the sound of their car pulling away finally filled the silence. I thought about how strange it was. The same person who once told me I was her future was now begging me just to acknowledge her. And the same friend who spent months trying to convince her I wasn't good enough was now watching her fall apart because she'd lost me. That was the moment I knew for sure. I was done. For good. But it would take me some time to understand what that really meant for me and what lesson I was supposed to carry forward. In the days after she showed up at my door, the calls and messages slowed down. For the first time in weeks, I felt a sense of real quiet. Not the heavy, tense silence that had followed our breakup, but the kind of quiet that feels like space to breathe. I spent those days replaying everything in my head, every red flag I ignored, every moment I told myself it's not a big deal, every time I swallowed my pride because I didn't want to start an argument. Looking back, I can see it clearly now. The relationship was doomed the moment she decided her friend's opinion mattered more than mine. Relationships aren't supposed to be about competition. It's not supposed to be me versus her best friend, or me versus her circle. It's supposed to be the two of us, building something together, protecting each other, defending each other when the world gets ugly. But in my case, it was never like that. I kept trying to convince myself it could be, but the truth is, it was always me against her and her friends. And the hardest part wasn't her friend's disrespect, it was her silence. The way she sat there, watching me take hit after hit, and said nothing. That silence spoke louder than anything else. When she finally turned on me and said, she's right. I probably do deserve better than you. That was the breaking point. It wasn't just a cruel comment. It was confirmation that she believed it, or at the very least, didn't care enough to defend me. It still stings when I think about it. One night we were talking about plans for the future, and within hours, I was packing her things into bags and showing her the door. That's how fast things can flip when the foundation isn't strong. And yet, as much as it hurt, I feel free. Free from the constant second-guessing, the subtle digs, the feeling of being in competition with someone I never should have been competing with in the first place. Free from bending over backward to earn respect that should have been given, not begged for. The threats, the lies, the late-night pleas to come back. All of that made me realize something important. I'd rather be single and at peace than stuck in a relationship where my self-respect is treated like it's disposable. Because here's the thing. If your partner doesn't defend you when others disrespect you, that's not love. If they stay silent, or worse, agree with the people tearing you down, that's betrayal. It's small at first, almost easy to brush off. But over time, it chips away at your confidence, your dignity, and your sense of worth. And by the time you realize how deep the cracks go, it can feel impossible to climb out. I was lucky enough to see it and walk away before it destroyed me completely. And as painful as it was, I know I made the right choice. Now, when I think about her regret, the tears, the begging, the way she tried to spin the story, it doesn't make me want to go back. It just makes me sad that it had to come to that. Because if she had stood up for me when it mattered, we might have had a fighting chance. But she didn't. And that says everything. So, that's where I'm at now. Moving forward, focusing on myself, keeping my head clear. It hurts to lose what I thought was real, but it hurts less than losing my self-respect. And at the end of the day, that's something I'm not willing to give up for anyone. I'm curious, though. To anyone reading this, what would you have done in my place? Would you have given her another chance after the apology, or would you have walked away the same way I did? I appreciate you watching till the end. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more content.